The afternoon sun blazed down on the winding mountain road between Madrid and Segovia as Cristiano Ronaldo guided his red Ferrari 488 GTB through the scenic curves of the Sierra de Guadarrama. It was Wednesday, June 18th, and he was driving to a private training facility in the mountains where he often went to maintain his conditioning during the off-season. The road was relatively quiet, with only occasional traffic passing in either direction, and Ronaldo was enjoying the peaceful drive and the opportunity to clear his mind before an intensive training session. He had been driving for about 40 minutes when he noticed dark smoke rising from somewhere ahead, visible above the tree line that lined the mountain highway. As he rounded the next curve, the source of the smoke became terrifyingly clear. A small white sedan had veered off the road and crashed into a large pine tree, with flames beginning to emerge from under the crumpled hood. The car was positioned about 30 meters down a steep embankment, and Ronaldo could see that the driver's side was severely damaged from the impact with the tree. Without hesitation, Ronaldo pulled his Ferrari to the side of the road and activated his hazard lights. As he jumped out of his car, he could hear the sound of a car horn blaring continuously, suggesting that the driver was unconscious and slumped against the steering wheel. The smell of gasoline and burning plastic filled the air, and Ronaldo realized that the situation was becoming more dangerous by the minute. He immediately called emergency services on his mobile phone while running toward the edge of the embankment. Emergency services, this is Cristiano Ronaldo. I'm on the N603 highway about 15 kilometers north of Madrid. There's been a serious car accident with a vehicle down an embankment, and the car is starting to catch fire. I need ambulance and fire services immediately. The emergency operator confirmed his location and assured him that help was on the way, but Ronaldo could see that the flames under the hood were growing larger and that immediate action was necessary to save whoever was trapped inside the vehicle. The steep embankment was covered with loose rocks and scrub brush, making it treacherous to navigate, but Ronaldo carefully made his way down toward the crashed car. As he got closer, he could see through the spider-webbed windshield that the driver was a young woman, probably in her 20s, with blood on her forehead from where she had hit the steering wheel during the impact. She appeared to be unconscious, and Ronaldo could hear her labored breathing even over the sound of the continuing car horn. The driver's side door was completely crushed against the tree, making it impossible to open from that side. Ronaldo ran around to the passenger side of the vehicle and found that while the door was damaged, it might still be possible to open it with enough force. The flames under the hood were now visible and growing steadily larger, and he could feel the heat intensifying as he worked to pry open the passenger door. Using all his strength, he managed to wrench the door open far enough to crawl inside the vehicle. The young woman was wearing her seatbelt, which had probably saved her life during the initial impact, but she was now trapped by the belt and her unconscious state. Ronaldo could smell gasoline vapors growing stronger, and he knew that he had only minutes before the fire reached the fuel tank and the situation became catastrophic. He carefully checked the woman's pulse and breathing, confirming that she was alive but clearly suffering from a head injury and possibly other trauma from the crash. "Can you hear me?" he asked loudly, gently shaking her shoulder. "I'm here to help you, but we need to get you out of this car right now." The woman's eyes fluttered open briefly, and she mumbled something incoherent before losing consciousness again. Ronaldo could see that she was wearing a medical alert bracelet, which he quickly examined. The bracelet indicated that she was diabetic and allergic to certain medications, information that would be crucial for the emergency medical team when they arrived. Working as quickly but as carefully as possible, Ronaldo unbuckled her seatbelt and began the delicate process of extracting her from the wreckage. The woman was petite, which made it easier for him to maneuver her through the confined space of the damaged vehicle. But he had to be extremely careful not to worsen any potential spinal injuries she might have sustained. The flames were now clearly visible through the space where the hood met the windshield, and Ronaldo could hear the ominous crackling sound of fire consuming the engine compartment. With considerable effort, he managed to pull the unconscious woman from the car and began carrying her up the steep embankment toward the safety of the road. The loose rocks and steep angle made the climb extremely difficult, especially while carrying another person, and Ronaldo found himself slipping several times as he struggled to reach the top. About halfway up the embankment, he heard the sound of sirens in the distance, indicating that emergency services were approaching. This gave him additional motivation to reach the road quickly, where paramedics would be able to provide immediate medical attention to the injured woman. Just as he reached the top of the embankment and laid the woman gently on the grassy area beside the highway, a loud explosion echoed through the mountains as the car's fuel tank ignited, sending flames and black smoke high into the air. The explosion confirmed that Ronaldo's quick action had literally saved the woman's life. If he had hesitated even a few more minutes, both of them would have been caught in the blast. Within minutes, ambulances and fire trucks arrived at the scene, and paramedics immediately took over the care of the injured woman. As they worked to stabilize her condition and prepare her for transport to the hospital, one of the paramedics approached Ronaldo to check if he had been injured during the rescue. "Are you hurt?" the paramedic asked, noticing that Ronaldo's expensive clothes were torn and dirty from the rescue effort. "I'm fine," Ronaldo replied, watching as the medical team worked on the woman. "How is she? Will she be okay?" The lead paramedic looked up from his patient. "Thanks to your quick action, she has a very good chance of full recovery. She has a concussion and some cuts from the glass, but her vital signs are stable. If you hadn't gotten her out when you did, this would have been a very different situation." As the ambulance prepared to leave for the hospital, the woman regained consciousness briefly and looked around in confusion. When she saw Ronaldo standing nearby, her eyes widened in recognition despite her disoriented state. You're Cristiano Ronaldo," she said weakly. "Did you save me?" Ronaldo knelt down beside the ambulance stretcher and took her hand gently. "The important thing is that you're going to be okay. What's your name?" "Anna," she replied, struggling to focus. "Anna Jimenez. I was driving to see my parents in Segovia when I think I fell asleep at the wheel. The last thing I remember is trying to avoid something in the road." The paramedic interjected, "Anna, we need to get you to the hospital right away for a complete evaluation, but you're in good hands now. This gentleman saved your life today." As the ambulance drove away with Anna, Ronaldo remained at the scene to give his statement to the police and fire investigators. The police officer taking his report was clearly amazed by what had transpired. "Señor Ronaldo, what you did today was incredibly brave. That car exploded less than 5 minutes after you pulled her out. Without your intervention, this would have been a fatal accident." Ronaldo shrugged modestly. Anyone would have done the same thing in that situation. When you see someone in danger, you don't think about yourself. You just act. Over the following days, the story of the rescue made headlines throughout Spain and internationally. News outlets praised Ronaldo not only for his heroic actions, but also for his humble response to the situation. However, what the media didn't report was that Ronaldo continued to follow Anna's recovery and had quietly arranged to cover all of her medical expenses and vehicle replacement costs. 3 weeks later, Anna was released from the hospital with no permanent injuries from the accident. Her concussion had healed completely, and she had regained full memory of the events leading up to the crash. When she learned that Ronaldo had been covering her medical bills, she insisted on meeting with him to express her gratitude personally. They met at a quiet cafe in Madrid, where Anna was finally able to thank her rescuer properly. "I still can't believe you risked your life to save me," she said, tears forming in her eyes. "You don't even know me, but you didn't hesitate to put yourself in danger to help a complete stranger." Ronaldo smiled warmly. "Anna, in that moment, you weren't a stranger. You were a person who needed help. I couldn't live with myself if I had driven past and something terrible had happened to you. Besides, any decent person would have done the same thing." Anna shook her head. "That's not true, and you know it. Most people would have called for help and waited for emergency services. You risked your own life to save mine, and I'll never be able to repay that debt." Their conversation revealed that Anna was a kindergarten teacher who had been struggling financially since her divorce 2 years earlier. She lived alone and had been driving an old car that she couldn't afford to replace, which was one of the factors that had contributed to the accident. When Ronaldo learned about her situation, he quietly arranged for her to receive a new, reliable vehicle and established a small fund to help with her living expenses while she recovered from the trauma of the accident. Months later, Anna returned to teaching with a new perspective on life and a deep appreciation for the kindness that people could show to one another. She often told her students about the importance of helping others, using her own experience as an example of how one person's brave actions could change everything for someone in need. She also became involved in road safety advocacy, speaking at events about the dangers of drowsy driving and the importance of taking breaks during long trips. For Ronaldo, the rescue became one of the experiences he was most proud of, not because of the public recognition it brought him, but because it represented the type of person he aspired to be, someone who would put others' safety before his own without hesitation. In interviews, he often mentioned that saving Anna's life had been more meaningful to him than any goal he had ever scored or any trophy he had ever won. Years later, Anna and Ronaldo maintained a friendship based on the extraordinary circumstances of their first meeting. She would occasionally attend Real Madrid matches as his guest, and he would sometimes visit her classroom to talk to the children about the importance of education and helping others. Their story became a powerful example of how a single moment of courage and compassion could create lasting bonds between people and inspire others to act with similar bravery when faced with opportunities to help those in need.